of the Arab League henceforth. I'm not sure whether that is diplomatically a significant move. I can't give you any more detail on that, but can you comment on what the Arab League should be doing at this stage?
Yes, this is important symbolically, as you said. It doesn't have any weight on changing the situation because Gaddafi is a very controversial figure. Gaddafi follows just his own mind thinking and just his the way he thinks of things. So it doesn't really I don't see that it's going to have an impact on the things and how they are developing on the ground. The
will Gaddafi respond to that? I mean, will it mean anything to him?
Well, Gaddafi already started attacking Arab leaders and Arab countries. He even attacked AlJazeera. I mean, he said he didn't name it. He didn't say AlJazeera, but he said many times in his speech that news channels are distorting facts and they are saying this and they are saying that, and he called that, you know, their betrayals and their. So he started already, even before this statement, he started attacking Arab countries and Arab leaders. So he will expect to do to continue to do the same.
But for a man who for so long has portrayed and presented himself and desired to be the unifier of the Arab world, it's got to mean something, isn't it?
Well, he is the unifier of the Arab world, and he is the unifier of Africa, and he is the unifier of the entire world. So really, there is no focus to what he is, what he says, and what he is really what he really intends to do. It's really disappointing that the Arab League comes with such a light statement, you know, of freezing meetings. This is just very disappointing, and it's very it's an indicator on the bankruptcy of the Arab League, unfortunately. That you know, for such an important level of escalation that is the response from the Arab League is the most that they should be reporting.
We'll have more on the Arab League in just a moment.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, a reminder that you're watching our special coverage of the uprising that's been taking place in Libya, and most specifically just a short while ago, in a furious address to the nation, Libya's leader, Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, vowed that he will stay in power. Broadcast on Libya's state television, his speech was a vitriolic attack on the anti-government protesters and all his detractors. Let's take a closer look at some of the points that he had to make in what was a long and often rambling speech. Gaddafi said his country's image is being distorted before the world. He has vowed to die in Libya as a martyr and was adamant that as the leader of the revolution, he will not stand down. He blamed the unrest on drugged young people and rats, and he accused the people on the streets of copying events in Tunisia and Egypt. And he said he wants the protesters, he said the protesters want to turn Libya into an Islamic state. He also warned that those who go against the constitution and against the military deserve the death penalty and will be shown no mercy. Lawrence Lee has been monitoring the day's events.
Having kept mostly silent for day after day, the Libyan leader was suddenly, astonishingly, not short of words on the crisis in his country. In an address which will no doubt be described as rambling by many commentators, he variously blamed the media, America, Britain, Italy, and hallucinogenic drugs forced on young protesters for causing the trouble in his country. It was a speech long on emotion, and he tried his hardest to appeal to anti-colonialist sentiment in Libya. But behind all the anger, there seemed to be one key message. He had created Libya. He would never leave.
I will not leave the country, and I will die as a martyr at the end.
All the same, the pressure on him is now immense. Several major cities across Libya under the control of the opposition. If anything, the violence meted out to the protesters seems to have been a tactical mistake by Gaddafi's regime, simply hardening the popular resolve. There have been many who've said there's no point backing down now because they'd simply be killed anyway. Images of the dead continue to surface, many extremely gruesome, some people torn limb from limb, adding to allegations that the military haven't only been using gunfire, but artillery as well.
We saw bodies divided in 3-4 parts. We saw only legs and only hands. And we saw really very bad kind of injuries here.
It's also ironic that Gaddafi, who for decades has styled himself as a saviour of the pan-Arab world, appears now so reviled across the region. From Dubai to Baghdad, ordinary Arabs have been expressing solidarity with the uprising, saying they hope the people bring their leader down.
I hope they rip him apart in the Green Square. I hope all the Libyan people get him and join together.
Libyan people have achieved the impossible, and Libya is about to get rid of this schizophrenic dictator. People are stronger than the tyrants.
Outside the allegations of crimes against humanity, there's another crisis somewhere on the horizon. These Egyptian migrant workers fled over the border from Libya, claiming mercenaries were firing indiscriminately. If the violence gets worse, a refugee crisis wouldn't be a surprise. Gaddafi asked the people, if they love him, to take to the streets and take on the greasy rats of the opposition. Otherwise, he said, America could occupy Libya like Afghanistan. Worryingly for the protesters, he also brandished his famous Green Book, pointing out that enemies of the country should be put to death. He did also mention the words constitutional reform at one point, but somehow it was all lost in the noise. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera.
And there have been a number of other developments as well. Let's bring you up to speed with other things that have been going on. Now, a Libyan naval vessel has appeared in waters near Malta, and the reports are that it's trying to defect. Meanwhile, the Arab League is meeting in Cairo to discuss this crisis. The EU has also been meeting, and it has announced that it is now suspending a framework trade agreement that it had been negotiating with Libya. Turkey has sent 2 Sea-Cat rescue ships to evacuate its citizens from Libya, and the Netherlands has also sent a plane to help evacuate Dutch nationals. And according to Italian officials, marine oil terminals in Libya have now halted their operations. In New York, the United Nations Human Rights Chief has raised the possibility of a trial for crimes against humanity in Libya. So just some of the developments that have been going on. And as we've mentioned, the Arab League has been holding an emergency meeting on what's been going on. Shireen Tadros has been following that for us and joins us now live from Cairo. Shireen, some news coming out of that yet?
Yes, absolutely. Just in the last few minutes, in fact, a statement released by the Arab League after about 3 hours of meeting. So bear with me while I try and translate it for you. But we understand there isn't a full suspension of Libya from the Arab League. Rather, the Arab League has decided that Libyan delegations can't take part in Arab League meetings from here on in. Remember, in fact, that the Arab League ambassador, the Libyan ambassador to the Arab League, I should say, has already quit his post. He did that on Monday night and said that he's doing so in protest to what the Libyan regime is doing to the Libyan people. So he is not really part of these meetings anyway. So it seems very much like that is somewhat of a symbolic move. Other statements coming out, the Arab League condemned the violence used against peaceful protesters. They have called on the immediate halt of the violence and a lift of the media ban in Libya from the regime. They've called on the Libyan regime also to allow aid through and have rejected, Taimur, these accusations that Muammar Gaddafi was making in his speech against Tunisia and Egypt in terms of inciting people within Libya and fueling the protests.
Are we expecting anything more, Shireen?
No, I don't think so. Strongly worded statement really is